Welcome to another episode of the Leading Life Podcast. I'm your host, Andy Zook, and this is where we say the quiet parts out loud about being better leaders. This is for people who want to lead better with clarity, humility, and purpose. So here we go. Right now on today's episode, we're going to talk about how to stop letting traditional leadership advice fail you. You're listening to the Leading Life Podcast, where we talk about what it takes to grow, lead, and live with purpose. I'm your host, Andy Zook, and each episode is designed to give you simple, real-world tools to help you show up as your best self in work and in life. And I'm going to say the quiet parts out loud in this podcast. No fluff, no listener traps, just actionable steps that you can take today. I started this podcast because I truly care about the people that work for us and the leaders who lead them. So I'm here to share what I've learned from over 35 years of leadership, coaching, mentoring, and motivating teams. So my examples and lessons are from on the job, from life, and my personal growth. Bottom line, I help leaders become even stronger leaders. And if you're not in a leadership position at your job, that's okay. I want you to lead in life, and I want you to know what to expect from the leaders you work for. Let's lead our lives better together. All right, here we go. This is why this episode matters, is because we're going to shift away from what traditional leadership has taught us over the years, and we're going to put together some new thoughts and new ways to lead people in a more impactful way. For decades, leadership advice sounded something like, be strong, be decisive, don't show weakness, command respect, stay in control. And for a long time, that worked. But here's the hard truth most leaders are wrestling with right now. The leadership advice that built yesterday's success is quietly sabotaging today's teams. Leaders aren't failing because they don't care. They're failing because they're following a playbook written for a different era and a different workforce and a different nervous system. Today, I want to unpack why traditional leadership advice is breaking down and what will actually work for you now. Number one, traditional leadership was built for compliance, not commitment. So old leadership models were designed for hierarchies, stability, predictable work, and limited employee voice. The goal was simple: control behavior. If people complied, leadership was considered successful. But today's workforce doesn't want to be managed that way. They want to be engaged. They don't ask, is my boss in charge? They ask, do I feel safe, respected, and understood? A great example of this is the company Gore-Tex. They're the ones behind the popular waterproof fabric. They operate with a unique lattice, no hierarchy, organizational structure. Rather than following traditional top-down management, Gore-Tex encourages a more centralized and collaborative environment. And each employee at any level has the freedom to take ownership of projects and make decisions. I know it sounds really out there because when I first heard it, I couldn't wrap my head around it at all. I don't even know if I fully wrap my head around it now. This structure itself, though, fosters innovation and creativity as it allows individuals to work more independently. So ultimately, Gore-Tex's employees are empowered to work in teams based on experience, not rank, which results in greater flexibility and a more inclusive approach to problem solving. That's fantastic. So the key here to remember is compliance produces short-term results, but commitment produces long-term performance. Traditional advice rarely makes that distinction. Okay, so remember, number one, traditional leadership was built for compliance, not commitment. Let's talk about number two. Don't be emotional, quote unquote, is terrible advice. One of the most damaging leadership myths is leave emotions at the door. Here's the problem. People really can't. Emotions aren't a distraction from work. They're an operating system underneath it. When leaders suppress emotion, fear goes underground and resentment builds quietly, and then the burnout accelerates. A powerful example of a leader integrating emotion into their work is Satya Nadella, CEO of Microsoft. I've talked about him before with you. And when Nadella took over as a CEO in 2014, he openly shared his personal journey of emotional growth, particularly his experience as a father to a child with special needs. And this deeply personal experience shaped his leadership approach emphasizing empathy and emotional intelligence as core values within Microsoft. And Nadella encouraged employees to embrace a growth mindset, not just for professional development, but for personal resilience. His vulnerability and that openness about the emotional challenges he faced allowed him to connect with his team on a more human level, fostering a more compassionate and inclusive corporate culture. And I want you to remember, Nadella transformed Microsoft. He wasn't just the new CEO and made them better. He transformed them, helping the company innovate and thrive while building a more supportive and engaging workforce. Strong leadership today isn't emotionless. It's emotionally literate. That's the distinction. So number 2, don't be emotional is terrible advice. Number 3, authority alone no longer creates respect. Yeah, traditional leadership relied heavily on title and tenure, but respect today is earned through consistency, integrity, psychological safety, and how our leaders handle pressure. And so a great story of that is the leadership style of Indra Nooyi, the former CEO of PepsiCo. Nooyi, recognized for her transformational leadership, proved that respect is earned through authenticity, humility, and empathy, not just the position. So during her time at PepsiCo, she broke away from traditional top-down leadership, and she started focusing on building relationships with employees and communities. So, for example, she made it a point to meet with employees at all levels, listen to their concerns, and actively work on initiatives that supported both her personal and professional growth. Her approachable demeanor and genuine care for her team cultivated that culture that we all want of trust and respect, demonstrating that leadership based purely on authority is outdated. So people no longer follow leaders because they have to. They follow leaders because they want to. If authority is your primary tool, your influence will always be fragile. So number 3, authority alone no longer creates respect. All right, on to number 4. Speed and pressure are no longer performance multipliers. Yeah, the old advice glorifies urgency. Push harder, keep pushing, move faster and faster, apply pressure. But pressure doesn't create clarity. It just hijacks it. If you think about it, teams under constant pressure don't think better. They just think narrower. Today's complexity requires calm, curiosity, and there's space to think. Leadership that accelerates without regulating burns people out instead of building capacity. The psychology behind this is simple. When leaders rely on fear, threats, constant urgency, and unpredictable reactions, they activate the amygdala. That's our brain's threat detection system. And once the amygdala is activated, creativity drops. Memory narrows, problem-solving declines, and people shift into fight, flight, or freeze. So in the state, people don't collaborate, they protect themselves. On the other hand, when leaders create predictability, psychological safety, calm pressure, and respectful challenge, they activate the prefrontal cortex. That's the part of the brain responsible for reasoning, empathy, strategic thinking, and self-control. So in simple terms, fear-based leadership shuts the brain down, safety-based leadership lights it up. Traditional leadership advice doesn't account for neurology, but modern leadership must. All right, so that was number 4, which is speed and pressure are no longer multipliers. Let's talk about number 5, never show weakness because it's going to destroy trust. Well, old leadership advice told leaders to project certainty at all costs, but today, certainty without honesty, it just feels inauthentic. So when leaders pretend to have it all figured out, people will stop sharing concerns and mistakes will get pushed to be hidden, or the learning of the team will slow down. Modern teams trust leaders who can say, you know what, I don't know the answer, but let's figure this out together. So a great example of this is Brené Brown, who is a research professor and author known for her work on vulnerability and leadership. And in her TED Talk and subsequent books, Brown openly shares her personal struggles with perfectionism, shame, and fear of failure. I think we all have some fear of failure. Rather than hiding these weaknesses, though, she embraces them as key aspects of the human experience. Brown's openness about her vulnerabilities has had a profound impact on her leadership approach, encouraging leaders to lead more with empathy and authenticity. So by modeling that willingness to be imperfect, Brown herself inspired countless leaders to embrace their own weaknesses, fostering environments where people feel safe to take risks, learn from failures, and grow. Her message is clear. Vulnerability is not a sign of weakness, it's a source of strength, and it builds trust and connection in our leadership. Vulnerability isn't oversharing, it's relational accuracy. So, never show weakness destroys trust. Number 6, defensiveness is no longer tolerated. Yeah, traditional leadership often rewarded being right, but defensiveness today signals fragility, insecurity, and unsafe authority. The moment people feel they have to manage a leader's ego, leadership effectively drops. Leaders who can receive feedback without collapsing or counterattacking gain a massive advantage. So number 6, defensiveness is no longer tolerated. And now, number 7, people don't leave jobs, they leave nervous systems. Yeah, this is one of the biggest shifts leaders miss. People aren't burning out because of workload alone. They're burning out because of constant tension, emotional unpredictability, lack of repair when things go wrong, or things that were said in haste, and then most of all, feeling unseen. Traditional leadership focuses on output. Modern leadership must focus on experience. Experience is what's going to determine retention, trust, and performance. Remember that. There's a company out there that I was heavily invested in working for years ago, and I personally love this company very much. I've watched them burn through valuable employees year after year. The turnover is crazy, and I don't even think they've ever stopped to really look at it and notice. And the thing is, I keep seeing the message over and over again that to their people, nothing is ever enough. And they keep losing people that go on to other companies, end up happier and more productive careers. So why haven't you noticed that happening? And why do you keep sending a message that nothing is ever enough? When employees feel unseen, they're just going to leave. It's really hard to watch, but they don't seem to learn their lesson. That's the problem. So people don't leave jobs, they leave nervous systems. So if you send a message that you'll never be enough, why would you stay? So let's talk about what actually works now. Leadership today requires a new operating system. Emotional regulation over emotional suppression. Curiosity over control. Safety over fear. Consistency over charisma. And repair over perfection. The leader who can create calm and chaos, clarity and uncertainty, and trust under pressure will always outperform the leader who relies on authority alone. This is your leadership edge for the episode. I'm going to go through some topics, and I want you to hear the difference between traditional and more empathetic leadership. Decision making. The traditional way would be top down. Leader makes decisions independently. Empathetic would be seeking collaboration and input from employees at all levels. Next one, communication. Traditional, formal one-way communication. Empathetic, open, two-way communication with active listening. 3, the next one is focus. Traditional would be prioritizes results and productivity. Empathetic would focus on well-being and development alongside the results. Next is authority. Traditional would be based on position and hierarchy. Empathetic would be authority is earned through trust and respect. Next, feedback and recognition. Traditional, feedback is formal and infrequent. Recognition is rare. Empathetic leadership would have regular feedback and frequent recognition for efforts. Next, emotional intelligence. Traditional would be emotions are separate from work, just focus on skills. Empathetic would be emphasizing emotional intelligence and connecting with employees on a human level. Conflict resolution. Traditional, leaders dictate solutions quickly and are authority-based. Empathetic, that would be mediating conflicts with understanding and seeking out win-win solutions. That's key there. Number 8, employee well-being. Traditional is productivity always over personal well-being. Empathetic leadership prioritizes mental health, work-life balance, and emotional support. Flexibility. Traditional would be rigid, structure, and schedules. Empathetic is flexible to accommodate individual needs, personal challenges. And lastly, engagement. Traditional leadership would have engagement measured by output and productivity. Empathetic leadership would focus on building strong relationships, ensuring that our employees feel valued. In summary, Empathetic leadership focuses on our people, emotional intelligence, and collaboration, while old school traditional leadership leans heavily on authority, control, and results at all costs. The modern shift emphasizes fostering an environment where employees can feel heard, respected, and empowered. This is going to lead to sustainable success. And this is your call to arms for the episode. Traditional leadership isn't evil, it's just outdated. That's the way I want you to look at it. It was built for factories, not humans. For control, not complexity. For obedience, not belonging. The question for every modern leader now is this: am I leading in a way that activates people's fear or their potential? Because the future of leadership doesn't belong to the loudest voice in the room. It belongs to us leaders who understand people at the human, emotional, and neurological level. So ask yourself, how are you leading today? And what's one shift from all that we talked about that you can put into practice tomorrow to better serve your teams? All right, that's what I want you to ask. That's my episode. I hope this impacted you for the better. And if it did, please leave me a rating or review on whatever platform you are on. Hit subscribe so you don't miss another episode of the Leading Life Podcast. And if this episode inspired you, share it with a leader who needs to hear it. And remember, the world gets better when us leaders get better. Until next time, I want you to lead with purpose, live with intention, and keep becoming who you were meant to be. But most importantly, go out and be the hero of somebody's story today. All right? Thanks for listening. I appreciate you, and I hope you have a great week of leadership. I'll talk to you soon. Take care. Bye.